Hey everybody, we're live. Thanks for tuning in again for week 32 of my Saturday live streams. Me coding another week of working on my OS in the browser, basically. Written in React using Next.js framework. Um, what more can I say? Styled components for styling. I can give you guys a quick little view of it here. This is it running right now with a little console on the side. It's basically like a fake operating system in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it's in no way an operating system. So here's the file explorer. Still got some work to do on this. I still need to do menu bars. I need to do navigation bar in the case of the file explorer, and I'd also like the view to be the detailed view by default. So I need to do column list rows. So this one still needs a lot of work. Probably a status bar I need too, now that I think about it. So I should actually add that to the list, but we'll see. That's one thing I haven't thought of. Got maximize, restore, minimize. Now we got right click menus here on these. We're gonna fix one thing today. You see when I right click how it defocused on the window? It's the same where if I click on an icon and I right click it, it defocuses. We're gonna fix that today. That's one thing. I got the minimize there. I can right click here and press close. A lot of stuff's starting to come together, so I'm pretty happy with that. I got double click there to close. I got double click here to open, maximize. Can look into some subfolders here. I still need to do the opening to be able to open the folder in the same folder. Like if I open this folder, it just changes this folder. Should be easy, but I just haven't done that yet. So it's still a lot of file viewers I still need for like these are PNGs. I need to have an image viewer. I want to get that going. These are shortcuts. At some point, I want to have everything be editable in like the text document editor. These work. This is like the Flash. I got a Flash emulator already built into it. Flash app using Ruffle, so we can run this like Windows RG, which is like another fake operating system. So the little inception of fake operating systems there, and a few other ideas like that. We got a real operating system here. If we go to Linux, so let's say we go to the images one, which is confusing because we also have icons. Yeah, image is a bad word for it because I'm talking about like ISO files, image files. But as you see here, we got Calibri, which is an OS or Linux. Could double click that and look at the folder structure of the ISO because I have the ability to look at the compressed files. I can also do that with zips as well, such as this ROM here, this Doom ROM. I can open up, oops, sorry. That opened in JS-DOS, so I have a DOS emulator too. In this case with the JS-DOS file, that's the default action. But if I close this and I right click it, I can I guess I don't have the ability to open it as a zip file. I should add that as a feature. That's another thing I'm missing. All right, there's two things. Somewhere I have a zip file though, I thought. Don't I have a zip? Let me rename this to zip. This is a silly way to do it, but if I rename it to zip and then I right click it, now we get options. See, now I can open zips in JS-DOS, or I can just open this as a zip file. And now we can see the contents of that zip file that it was using in DOS. And what we could also do is open this in JS-DOS here. And then when Doom loads, we could just quit it. And I think it does some wonkiness to the resolution here. Yeah, it gets a bit big. That's just happens to be this game does that. And we can see the directory structure there as well. Same files. So like this readme.txt could there it is there. It ends with special thanks to Zoom. Or I can close this, open it as in the folder. Oh, I actually don't have a way to open text documents yet. See, I need another app. So still a lot of work to do on my part as far as that kind of stuff. An icon viewer, that could be the image viewer, JSONs. I want to have an IDE, like an integrated development environment, kind of like VS Code. So that's another app I have to build still. Got a lot of the animations too, like here, if you see the title bar, if I unfocus, you see when I focus in the window, it actually does the same kind of animation on the taskbar entry. We also got peak, so if I hover over, you see a little peak of the window. Doesn't work perfectly on every one, but it works decent. See Winamps, it works too. It's got these blue circles. I know why they happen, but it's not a super easy fix with this thing that makes these images, so I'm still working on that. But yeah, we got like a little Winamp clone here that's fully functional. You can skin it. We can even find some skin files here. We got some like SpyAmp Pro. Could load Winamp there, and then you can go into the music folder and load up the demo and listen to their demo music. Could hang it over here in the corner and just keep doing other stuff in the meantime. So this would be a typical Saturday night for me, let's say 20 years ago. I got my Winamp on, maybe not 20 years ago, but maybe. Open up my Doom. Oh, what happened here? Interesting. Well, that's a cool bug. This is for another day. I don't want to debug this right now, but that's something I just recreated there. I think it's because I opened it and closed it once before. I've got some kind of cache clearing thing that it's not ideal. We'll ignore it for now. It's not a big problem. But that's a cool bug, so ignoring that, there we go. It's booted up. Now it's complaining here, though. Almost better to refresh. I bet if I do a refresh, that won't happen. See, watch, I opened Doom the first... Oh, what? Something's broken then. Goody. This wasn't broken earlier, but hey, whatever. But you guys saw me open it earlier. That's weird. I wonder if it's somehow related to somehow I messed up the zip file. I probably messed up this... Oh, right, because that was... Alright, well, it's working now. I guess I clicked the shortcut, and the shortcut was pointing to the .js DOS file, and that had been renamed. But oddly enough, it still worked. That should not have happened. Whatever. What other things we got here? I think that's a good gist of it for now. You see here we got the little sidebar, but if I hover over it, nothing happens. We're going to add that today, hopefully. Let's get into the changes. So we got a bunch of them. We got the clock, of course, too. I don't have much that the clock can do right now. Let's get into the changes. So every week I do a branch where I kind of do changes. This was for episode 32. I ended up doing 32 commits. That's completely unrelated. I didn't even notice that, but funny, 32. So cool. Let's jump to the first one. Allow multi-select icon. So if you see here, I got this ability to do this selection thing now. But if you hover over an icon, nothing happens. That was something I wanted to fix last episode, and I figured it out. So let's see what I did. Looks like, all right, the key element was this logic here, is selection intersecting. Is that I have the box, the selection box that I'm making, and I know where the icons are and where their boxes are, but I didn't really have the logic figured out yet for how they were going to intersect. And now I have that, so what I'm going to do is do a bit of copy pastage of the code that we added here, and then we're going to go through each file and try to figure out how it all makes sense and how it all adds together. Let's jump into the code then, and I'm going to go right to... I want to look at this intersection function first, because this one's interesting to me. I don't even remember what I did as I wrote. Oh, it looks like I made a whole new file, too, in the selections folder. So let's go do that. Components, system, files, file manager, selection. That's getting a bit deep. New file called functions.ts, nice and generic. I'm going to close this, and then I'll just paste in a file name, which is of no use to anybody. Instead, I'm going to copy the code and paste it in. There we go. So this is the gist of the function. It's actually simple. Now I'm pretty sure I Stack Overflowed a bit of it and then kind of massaged it myself. That I'm proud to. I'm not proud to say that I did that. You know, I totally look at Stack Overflow for some things like this, like best ways to figure out how two boxes are intersecting. I'm not sure this is the best way, but at least I've cleaned up the code in comparison to how it was in Stack Overflow from a readability point of view. See if I can zoom in a bit more. Yeah, we'll zoom in that much. So let us see what we've done here. Basically, is selection intersecting takes an element which is already a DOM-rect object, and it takes this selection which is called a selection rect. Now that's something I made up. So I think we should take a peek at what that is before we go any further into trying to figure out what the heck this is. Let's go to the next file. The next file that I need to change is the... Well, we'll get to the rest of this code, but I want to see what a selection rect is before I jump ahead. Let's just see what I changed in the use selection hook. I'm going to take a peek at the difference. So I added that type, the selection rect, and as you can see here, it's basically the attributes I already had, size and position. Size I'm getting from my use resizable hook that's already existing, in position from the React R&D. And if you hover over them, they're simple enough, although what the heck, it's not understanding it here. I think it's being silly. I'm going to close VS Code and reopen it. Sometimes VS Code does not pick up my types if I end up nuking the node modules folder at the when I'm setting things up, because I switch branches, and I just nuke it at this point because otherwise it just gives me a hard time sometimes. Okay, let's see here now if we know what it is. Now when we look at the difference and we hover over size, there we go. That's what I wanted to see. So width, string or number, height, string or number. Okay, so it's width, height, and x and y. And x and y in this case are numbers. I'd almost prefer these to be numbers too. I need to fix this at some point. It's a little annoying having to convert the size sometimes. As you can see here, I've done it a bunch. So what else did we add in that hook? We added the export. We defined it as something that gets exported from the selection hook. So we added, did we add the is selecting Boolean? No, that we already had. All right, I just added it. What did I do here? Huh, did I not have is selecting before? Oh, okay. Before I had it over here, just direct returning it. But now I've assigned it a variable here because I needed to use it twice. And then the key piece here, the selection styling. Oh, okay, yeah, I kind of cleaned this up. I was already doing has size, has position, has size, has position. I've just turned, and that's what is selecting was. Otherwise, what the heck did I change here? Nothing. So is this like the most minor change in the world? Was this just me cleaning up? Oh, okay. I returned the selection rect now. Okay, so that is completely the only difference is that this selection rect that I use in the new function, I'm assuming is what's getting passed, which is just made up of size and position. And one of these could be undefined, which is why I've used partial for these, like a partial size, partial position. Gonna take, oh, I'm powered by Rockstar today, guys and girls and such. So why do we get the selection rect separately from the selection styling, which uses the selection rect logic? Because I wanted these exact numbers separate from stringified styling, basically, so that I could do some math on them. Now let's get back to the math. So in the DOM rect has a little bit more than a selection rect in that I don't have top, bottom, left, and right defined in my selection rect, but the DOM rect has those things. So as you see here, I take the const here. I take selection and I get out the x, the y, the width, and the height. I basically extract out those 4 elements, and then I pass them into I make a new DOM rect here where of those elements called the selection rect. And then by doing that, it actually calculates the right, the bottom, left, and top. And then I use this algorithm that I've kind of, I don't know if you can call this an algorithm or not, but this is what I've found works. And something similar I found in JavaScript and Stack Overflow. Sorry, I found it was not as clean. I think my method, without me being able to say, oh, of course, this explains how two rectangles intersect with the not here as well. At least it's clean enough to at least read. So element left is greater than or equal to element right, or element top is greater than or equal to element bottom, etc., etc., etc. So I think the case is all of these have to be true, or that might be the case to know if it's completely intersecting. I'm not sure. Anyways, it seemed efficient enough. If anyone has a better one, seemed clear enough, and that it works. So I'm not sure if it's the perfect one, but it definitely works. What's next? What next do I have to do? So I have to pass that selection rect, which is in the file manager index, I believe. That's where selection's being used because it's kind of overlaid over the files. So here's where we had the styled selection. I'm just going to tweak it and take a peek at what I tweaked. Very little. So we've added that extracting of selection rect now that we have it. And then we just pass it along to the file entry, which is, right, it's probably the step between this and this. So yeah, the file entry needs to know this selection rectangle so that, because the file entry itself knows its position, which is where I get that element rect from. Each file entry knows its position. So I let the file entry itself handle whether it's being focused on. There's a lot of stuff I actually do this episode, I think, as far as adjusting the logic of certain things. Okay, I'm just looking at what the next file. Looks like there's only one other file, which is, of course, the file entry file that I was just talking to you guys about. So I'm just going to copy that one over as well. File entry index. Paste it in here, and let's take a peek at what I changed there. Not the right file. Here it is. So here's where it all comes together. So I take that function that I got that checks the selection intersection. I take the type that I got. I need the session now. Why do I need the session? Yes, for doing focusing of entries, blur, focus, and check the focused entries. This is from last episode where I set it up so that there's this focused entries array of each entry that's being focused on or highlighted. So we need the session to work with that. Looks like I converted to base name here to do focusing because we just need the name. We already know what folder we're in. It's just like the consequence of being the file entry here. And then use effect and use ref. Okay, let's see how we use it. So we already know that we now accept selection rect. We get it here. We get those focus and blur events. We make a reference to the button here. Okay, that's simple enough. Why do we do that? Because the button is what we want to know its position on. That's why we're doing the get bounding client rect on it to get its DOM rect returned to us. And that's what we pass on to the selection intersecting function. So the rect of the element plus that selection rect that we got originally. And the file name is what we use to see if it's in the focused entries list. And we also use the file name to decide if we want to focus or blur it. So the way this works, first we see, is it already focused? And then we also check it, is it selected currently in the selection? So if it's selected and it's not focused, then focus on it and then also focus on the button itself. Otherwise, if it's not selected but it is focused, then we want to blur it. And what's the logic there? Right, this is in regards to the selection grid. So let's say if one of the elements is already focused, what's the logic behind this? I'm trying to understand when this scenario occurs. It's not selected, but it is focused. I guess this could be used to unfocus on the original one. My original thinking on it, I don't know what my original thinking was anymore, honestly. Does this make any sense? Why would I ever blur it? Do a console log here and try to understand this as we take a peek at it hopefully working. But does this ever occur? I'm confused on that. I think that might occur. This might be... No, because it's for the file entry, and it's when there is a selection rectangle. That's when we think about this. Oh, okay, then this makes total sense, actually. Sorry. So it's already focused, and then the rectangle becomes smaller, let's say, and then it's no longer focused. It's no longer selected, but it was just previously focused. Now it's time to blur it. Okay. So of course that makes sense. So this is actually simple enough, this effect. And was there any other changes? I think there's one change I have to do still involving the z-index, but we can see that in action, that problem. Let's take a peek now at the code and see. Oh, it's not running? What happened? Okay, there we go. So there's our selection, and let's take a peek. We move over it, and oh, there we go. It focused. Focus, focus, focus. Nice. And then I let go, and they're all focused. And then I can hold control and click one of them and unfocus one of them. I can hold control again and refocus that. I can click over here and unfocus them all. Okay, so the selection rectangle is working now. That's cool. And it wasn't too much code for the most part. Simple enough. It was mostly just figuring out this intersection and then just getting the two elements together so you know their left, right, bottom, and top positions. Here you're just passing that along. This was the function to do that check. And this was mostly just optimizing the Boolean thing. Let's double check that z-index thing now that I was talking about. Oh, right. So you can see here that the icons are not above the selection. So for that, we need to change the z-index on the styled selection, which is here, and we'll just change it from a 1 to a 2. Now when we hover, there we go. Now it goes over the icon, so now it's the full blue. Now there was one other little change I think that I did that seems like not even related. I changed the coloring a little bit. I'm going to do it this one because it's involved the highlight background. It's basically the color in the middle of this box that you see. I think I just had the observation that it should be a little bit more opaque, I think is where I was going with that. So from 30%, we're just going to do 20%. Might not even be noticeable. Yeah, there we go. We saw it's a little lighter. but I think that matched Windows a little bit better. And it's still working, so those were the main changes for this one. Let's close that. And I'm gonna see what I named it last time. I named this allow multi-select icons. That's still a decent name. I say let's commit that, and that'll be our first commit. Oh, I had update packages as my first commit. I guess we'll do allow multi-select icons first, and then we'll do update packages because I glossed over that. Yeah, I think we reviewed it enough. Let's just commit it. Now, I should note that this code that we've written, I think there's like 3 or 4 commits along the way tonight where I tweak it. So that's not the final version. If you're yelling at me, well, what about this? What about this? I found some bugs throughout the week while I was coding it, and there's some fixes. So, but feel free to yell at me. Feel free to comment. Feel free to like the video if you're having a good time here, or if you like what I'm up to, and feel free to subscribe if you want to keep posted on this. A little plug I'll sneak in there. Now let's do the updating of these packages. Let's open up a terminal and run yarn outdated to check what's outdated, just for my own interest. Looks like the music metadata, and then staged, not too much. So we're going to do yarn upgrade, and we're going to do -- latest to upgrade the package JSON file as well. I think you still need that flag. I'm not sure. Maybe next time I'll check if you still need that. To me, it should be the default behavior to update package JSON, I think. It's just easier. But maybe not. Okay, let's see what we got. Yeah, so not too many package updates. No big deal. I don't care. But it's cool when you get package updates that don't break stuff. This updated the music metadata. Not super important. Anyways, package updates. I'm not going to give that one too much fanfare. Done. First the note was update packages. I'm changing it to package updates. Much better. It's like 7 times better, probably. At least. Okay, let's check out what the next thing is. This one's Dunsies. Tweak wallpaper fits. Oh, right, this was a fun little tweak. I think there was very little I had to change. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So let's go to the code. Let me find my wallpapers on my desktop, and I'm going to drag a wallpaper on. So there we go. I just dragged that onto the desktop here. There's a few things I'm going to fix this episode. So first, the icon is messed up. You see, I mean, the wallpaper is like a rectangle, and it's trying to fit in a square. We'll fix that with 1 line of CSS after I spent almost an entire day messing with a lot of stuff I didn't need to before I realized it's already solved in CSS. So we'll right-click this, set as background, and you see here we have fill, fit, stretch, tile, and center. Now, I support all of those in a way, but I didn't completely compare them in Windows to see am I getting as close as possible to what fill is like, what stretch, fit. So I'll do fill right now and show you. There we go, it changed. But this isn't, I don't think, exactly the way that it should look. And there's not many tweaks, it's pretty minor. One of the main things was setting the background position to centered all of the time. And this, I only had it happening once here for the center one. But I think it's for stretch, for tile, for specifically, especially for the center one, and for the other two, for fit and fill, all of them should just have the background center, because that seems to be in my version of Windows 10 how it works. I say my version because as I've been programming this and getting Windows updates, I realized that they actually change stuff often. You know, like the color they've slightly tweaked between build versions on updates, or the way a transition is, or the speed that it happens at. Just observations I've noticed, you know, or I'm crazy. It's probably a bit of both, but I think things subtly change. So we're just going to fix these. We're going to first set the default for style desktop to centered for the wallpapers. Like that, with background position. And then I'm just going to tweak these 3 settings that were in my use wallpaper hook. I have this wallpaper hook has 2 logical parts. The one is if we have the image already set. Otherwise, it uses this wallpaper function, which you can set on a per theme basis if you want. So it's just these 3 that I want to change. So background stretch is going to become from 100% auto, I'm going 100%, 100%. That was more accurate. For tiling, I literally don't need to change anything. The way the tile looks is basically the default behavior. But I have to put the entry here just for the code to work the way that it already does. And I'm fine for it to do that because maybe in the future I might tweak it. And then centering goes from being this complex mess to this is the default. Oops. This is the default now. This was already the default, basically. And then it just needs to be this. So I just shaved it down to what it needed to be. I think that I just did it, but let me press save and see why it's complaining. What is it complaining about? Okay, good. Nothing. It looks like. Yeah, great. So there, I don't have a perfect example to show you, but let's try here. We'll right click and press fill. Didn't really change fill. Wait, let me refresh, because shouldn't it have? Maybe fill just updated to be how we expect now, because the CSS changed. Probably. Ugh. Fit. Stretch. Tile. And center. So you see they all kind of gave different results, I think, for the most part. On a smaller image, they would probably give even different results. Differenter is not a word, by the way. I'll just tell you right there. I just dragged another one in here at my avatar picture. You could set this one for fill. You get the full dust in there. You could do fit. That made it a little tinier. Do stretch. That made it a little tinier in another, or bigger in another direction. Tile, which tiles it. And center, which did not center it, so something didn't work. Ah, okay. That's why center didn't change. I never pressed save to this file. Wah, wah. There we go. Now center centers. So probably this will look different now, how I expected. There we go. That looks more like how it looks for me in Windows when I use it. Because I use fill by default. Fit. There we go. Fit looks better, more centered. That's how I wanted that to look. Stretch. Yeah, there we go. They all look a little more accurate. Tile. Okay, tile here. Does that look different? Yeah. Tile's clearly centered now. That's how it should look. So that's how it should be with my face as the wallpaper all the time. That'd be interesting. I guess I could do that as my thing. Let's not, though. Okay, so that was tweaking the wallpaper fits. Don't have a tweak fit. Get this question mark out of here. What were those two things I wanted to change? Darned if I don't remember. Allow, what was it, .js DOS files to be opened via File Explorer? That actually should be really easy to do, honestly. Maybe we can just quickly search for JS DOS. You know, I think I took some effort to try to make that easier. Extension, JS DOS. Here we go. So it can be opened with JS DOS as the default. I should say the non-default is File Explorer. Let's just see if doing that works. I don't even know if that should work. Let's go to the browser and see if that literally just worked. File Explorer. Where was it? Images? ROMs. Here it is. Right, so this is JS DOS. Now when I right click, there we go. Now I have open with File Explorer. Oh, but that doesn't quite look right. Interesting. But if I close that and I rename it to zip, then it works. Okay. I think I've got something hard-coded there that's not right. So let's not do this change. Let's undo that change because I don't want to start fiddling with it right now. This is good for next stream. That's a next stream thing. And the other thing that I wanted to add was something that I'm not remembering right now. Oh, the status bar. Status bar for File Explorer. Probably not next stream, but I'll say future stream. We'll have a next stream column in case we decide to talk about something specifically for next stream. This one could be specifically for next stream, but yeah, this one could. Status bar ain't gonna happen next stream. I'll tell you that, guys, right now, because I don't even have it on my roadmap, which is all those post-its behind me. We're done with the fit. Let's move on. I'm going to clear the cache because I don't want to see this wallpaper. I prefer my animated one for now. There we go. Done. On to this. Change tab index to something more clear. This is just me consistently moving to constants. I thought this was kind of cool because before, I mean, if you're just as someone who doesn't know a lot of the inner workings of tab index, not that I even do, when you just see tab index equals -1 on an element, you're like, what is this? What? -1 tab index? So for tabbing? But it actually allows the element to be focusable because not every element is focusable by default. So I've decided to just turn this into the constant called Focusable Element, which I think is a little more clear. Let's find out where the heck I set it originally. Here it isn't. Here it is. So let's start there. Constants. we're going to add one. What did I call it? Focusable element. So we'll put it right here after E. Basically, this just will allow the tab index to be dumped on a component with that technique I did of the triple dots. And we got to apply it to a bunch of places. So let's get started here. First one is use focusable. Actually, what we can do possibly is we can search for tab index at least. Oops, that's the commit part. 13 places. No. Let's see. Well, here's one of them anyways. See how far this copy pastage can get me. ... Focusable element. There we go. I don't know if it should stay there. I prefer these when you're doing that triple dot stuff to put them in the bottom. And the auto import should have worked. It did. Nice. Thank you, auto import. Here's another case, and again, I'm going to move it to the bottom. Press save. Auto import does its thing. Next one. Okay, same story. Again, I'm going to put it at the end. Nice. Simplified. This one's already in the right place to be replaced. Okay, that put it on one line. I'm going to fix this piece then too and put this here to go along with what I was saying. It's my preference. That looks better. Oh wait, did auto import not work here? Interesting where and where not auto import works. Okay, there it worked. Didn't work on my first save, but second time it did. This piece is a little harder. For this one, I think what I did, and I'm not sure how proud I am of it, but I'm just trying to understand my own code here. I did events and type of focusable element, and the Z index is custom. It's kind of a wonky way to do it, but it allows me to keep the mystery of whatever focusable element is doing. I don't have to say, oh yeah, it's tab index here. Okay, we'll get it out of there, and we'll put it here. Like so. It still does the same thing functionally. Now this one, I don't know what the heck I did. I think this has to stay. No, I'm wrong. I even changed it here. Here at least I did the number, and I did this. So here I'm basically just saying a focusable element dot tab index dot to string. So here we had to know the secret that it's tab index, but I'm converting it to a string so that we know that the focusable element's tab index is -1. That's all we need to know. And I mean, that's not a special number, but it's a known number. There we go. So we've replaced all tab indexes now. So now when you're talking tab index, you're talking something else. The rest of them there aren't anymore. No need for them. Great, let's do another commit then. Close everything here, too much open. I'm going to call this commit the change tab index, and we're going to change tab index. Next up, disabled right click on resize handles. Right. Yeah, I don't want a context menu on the resize handles. The interesting thing about that, anywhere that you right click that I don't have an on context handler, it just does the Chrome right click. And I want to do that. I want to have that as little as possible for the user, which can be annoying, honestly. Sometimes it's going to make it harder for them to inspect my page, but I might work on something that allows them to see that. Like maybe in my right click menu, it'll be like inspect code will be a button, which is different than Windows, obviously, but then they could somehow look at the code. It could open in an IDE or something. So you see here, right click, that's my menu. This is my menu. But if I right click here, you don't see anything because of my screen share, but I see the Chrome menu now. My mouse is moving over it right now, even though you just see my mouse moving on nothing. So I want when I click here for nothing to happen for the user, me. Easy enough to do. We just need to find the RND window index. Here, this is the resizing windows index. And I have this reroute focus function where I apply tab indexes to each one. And I'm also going to apply this event listener that on the context menu click, don't do the default. But on a mouse down, I want you to also not do the default, but focus on the element. And that's that. This was already here. There's two rules basically. Not to make it confusing, even though it seems like I just tried to. Disabled right click on resize handles. Nice. That one's done. Another additional commit. That was a really easy one. And, oh, let's demo it, I guess. I mean, I right click, you still don't see anything, but you see now how my cursor doesn't switch to those arrows because the context menu never appeared and made my cursor change. So for that reason, I guess you guys can see, assuming you know that I'm right clicking. Oh, darn it, I just moved the window. I resized it. There, good enough, good enough. What's next? This one, I guess. Maintain focus, but still blur when desired for context menus. What did I end up doing here? I think the logic here was that thing I was saying, where when I click an icon and then I right click it, it unfocuses it. I want to maintain that focus. So now when I reset menu, I've turned it into a callback here. Otherwise, this didn't change at all. So I wrapped this in use callback because I'm going to use it in the use effect, I'm guessing. Before it was just doing this. If it has items and it's not a submenu, focus on it. Now it's saying in that case, okay, so this needs to exist still. It can't be a submenu, has to have items. But then once we're here, we have a few different things. If the active element, that selected element, is an HTML element and it's not the body, the reason for that not the body one is if you right click on something that doesn't have a tab index, and if nothing behind it has a tab index, then it'll fall down to the body, and that'll be like the end element. So I'm saying as long as when they clicked, it didn't go all the way to the bottom and have the active element, or the back, whatever you want to call it. In that case, the active element, we add a blur listener to it. So the next time the user blurs off of it, we reset the menu. And we make this a one-time event. Now, if the active element is not an HTML element, or it is the body, then we say, you know what, just focus on the menu. Because if you focus on the menu, then the next blur on the menu will reset it. And that's the same as reset menu. Now, I think I changed this in a little bit to add to it because I think blur is not enough. We also need a click handler, because if they click on, let's say the background is the thing. Well, if they click back on the background, then that's not going to blur off of it. So we're not going to reset the menu. But let's just start with this, because this is simple enough so far. It's baby steps because I did these commits before I realized certain parts of it, which is pretty typical for me. I'm kind of silly that way. Oh, this isn't the right one. Unfortunately, I have 2 menu indexes. Yeah, okay. Let's take a peek at the diff. Just like I said, I wrapped this in the callback. Nothing else changed there, and then we did the thing we discussed. And I moved this. Oh, I don't want that, yeah. This is like, because I fixed focus element, but then I copy pasted all this text. I guess last time I committed it, I put it up there, but not my preference. I prefer it here. So the change is only this and this piece here, the wrapping in callback. Okay, so then now when we click an item and then I right click, you see it stayed focused. And when I click off of it, the focus goes away. But the issue here, let's say I right click here, okay, and if I blur here, it goes away. But if I right click here and then I click here, you see now it's not going away. I feel like fixing that sooner rather than later. When did I fix it here? I don't know when I fixed it. I guess we can come back to it, but I already know it's wrong. I just wish I knew exactly how I fixed it. Just specify the event is one time. No, that's not it. Truncate, selection, improvements, focus on right-click file. Is this the same one? No. Darn it. Where did I fix that darn thing? Days later? Oh, I did a lot of commits. Here, I think I changed it. Yeah, here we go. So here I changed it again. I think we just should do this now instead of doing it the not perfectly correct way. So let's again see what changed. So before in the old code, I was actually checking. This is actually the same. Oh, okay. So at some point wait, what? Did I change this again? At some point I changed this again. Was that because of here? think that was here. I think I made a mistake here. Yeah, this was wrong. So here's how it looks now for me. At some point I change it here and then I change it right back. So we're gonna even ignore that it looked like that. It's supposed to already look like this. That's what I have here. So that didn't change. This piece changed. So instead of going document.activeElement, I've decided to call it focused element because I'm using it inside here. I say we just use this change. This looks better. Let's copy that. And then I had this options thing. What did I have here? I had a lot of stuff. Okay, we'll go to the code. Let's jump to the code and just do it right the first time, as they say. Here it is here. I'm going to paste the piece. It's right in here. So I made this function called menu unfocused. This is what I'm adding. So here I'm currently doing this already. I had this options thing. That could be called options. And I think it had a type. I think I'd given it a type. Yes, I did. I gave it the correct type, in fact, which is the best type to give it. And then we don't use this one, but these still do the same thing, which is to reset the menu, but then they also remove the event listener. So this I might improve this in the future, but basically I've added 2 event listeners now instead of 1. My idea before was that when you blur off the menu, or so we check what we're focused on now, and then we add a blur event to say, hey, when you blur off that thing you're focused on now, can you also run this function? So we want to keep doing that, but we also want that if you click the thing again that is focused, that also is considered a blur because that's not clicking on the thing that I, in theory, wanted to be focused, which is the context menu. Now, the reason I have, so we know we have click and blur, like I just said, but the trick here is that the options are for a one-time passive event. So if you do a click, it'll remove the event listener. Nice. Or vice versa for a blur. But it won't do both. So if you blur off, you still got that click event. So if at some point you go click on what was originally focused, it's going to run another event that's going to do reset menu again, which might be fine. Possibly not, though, to be honest. Probably not, because the component's already destroyed. So if it tries to do a dispatch event on that, it could cause an issue. But that's why we're doing what we do here, is where we remove the event listener from the one that hasn't triggered yet. So if the type of one that just occurred was a click, then remove blur. Otherwise, remove click, basically. That's the gist of it. So let's add that focused element, which was document active element. We check it here. Okay, that's the focused element. I guess we could call it focused element even at this stage. Yeah, why not? Because we have to check this. So focused element, we don't need it in here. It's a little cleaner. So it's an HTML element, it's not the body. The options here are that it's capture and it's a one-time passive event. We got the menu here that clears itself after it does reset. That's all there is to that. So that's an improved version of it. Now let's see, that one will probably work a bit better, I'm hoping. So now when you click the item and I right click, you see it's still selected, but if I right click here and I click, it goes off. Nice. If I right click the title bar now, you see it stays black, but if I click it again, it goes away. Right click the title bar, click over here. So it still works now, and now when you click, it looks like you're focused on the right thing. Okay, so that was like 3 commits in one, basically. The first commit, the one where I mess it up a little bit, and then the one where I make it quite a bit better. I'm going to combine those 3 together and use the original name, because I thought it was good the first time, but it wasn't. I'll say maintain focus on context, or no, wait. Maintain focus on element when context opens. Yes, that's basically what I'm doing. And it looks big, but it's pretty much just another condition on this where I check, well, what's focused? Is it something we want to leave focused or not? Okay. I'm going to commit that. I don't want to think about it anymore, so I'm going to commit it. And we're going to move on. We just went through 3 commits there in one. 3 in 1. go back to where we were. We were at this. Maintain focus, Dustin. Just specify the event is one time. This is where I could have done another one-time event. I think this is actually much more efficient. Let me confirm this. I think I actually had a silly way that I was doing it. Use file system context state. Is that what I'm changing? Looks like it. I want to take a peek at the diff. Okay, so yeah, before I was making an input listener, and then on change, when the listener ran, I was removing it and then running what I wanted to run. That's kind of silly because there's actually this option called once. So I can just do that. I can add an event listener that on change, it'll run the handle file input, and then it only happens once, so it'll remove itself. That's a much better way to do cleanup when possible. Doesn't work in that other case though, where there's two event listeners, so I need one, and I only need one of them to fire. I don't know if there's a special case for that. Just specify the event as one time. Okay, I'm also powered by water today. I'm gonna have some water. Powered by water. The drink of choice for champions. And anyone that wants to live, basically. Okay. That one's in the books. Let's go to the next. This is the whole day, so that's August 2nd done. Fix icon aspect ratio. Yes, if you guys remember. So here's that CSS spoiler. There's a CSS called ObjectFit. I'd never heard of it, but it's useful. The ObjectFit CSS property sets how the content of a replaced element, such as an image or video, should be resized to fit its container. Great. So there's fill, contain, cover, scale down. They sound cool. Let me drag that icon back on from my pictures folder, my wallpaper. Oops. There we go. This is the wallpaper icon here. As you see, it's stretched. Now we're going to jump to the code, and we're going to add that entry in the icon styling right here above visibility. We'll say object fit is contained. And then just like that, now it looks better. Now in Windows, oddly enough, the image actually is at the bottom. And I could do that, but you know what? I don't want to. I think this looks better. I think it looks better centered. So there's the occasional time where I take a little bit of artistic creativity with the Windows thing and do it my way. And, you know, I prefer the wallpaper to be centered. It doesn't look good at the bottom. I don't know why they do it that way. They probably changed it already in Windows 11. Who knows? But I'm focused on Windows 10 right now. So, and doing it the way I want at the same time. That actually might be cool in the future, like a Windows 10 plus a Windows 11 hybrid. Like, here's my idea for Windows 12 or something. Who knows? It'll just be a theme at some point because the OS underpinnings is something I'm building here. So we'll be able to theme it to look like Linux or Mac, whatever. Still works the same. I'm not even going to click it. It doesn't need clicking. There's some bugs here to iron out. I have some notes. If you see here, the G is a little bit cut off at the bottom. That's wrong. The fact that we even see the G, I feel, is wrong. It should be ... It shouldn't be going to the next line for one character. I'm not a fan of that look. And in Windows, it doesn't do that. But I think Windows has some like logic. It's not just pure rules. Like, because I messed with trying different letters and variations of the length of letters and what letters you use. And it does different stuff, you know. Or I can't figure out the underlying way that it works. You know, I haven't been able to reverse engineer it good enough. One day I will fix icon aspect ratio. You know, I'm going to change that to be fix aspect ratio of icon. Way different. Just change the meaning by 11 billion% is what someone who's lying would say. Next up, truncate if more than one item selected. What's this mean? Ah, yes, this is a nice little tweak. So you see how we can select multiple items. That's cool. If we name this something longer... Wait, why can't I rename this? Okay, there's some other bug that I need to fix. I think I have a fix for this that we'll get to. I think that whole focus unfocus logic that I did has added a new bug where I can't right-click I can't click anything in the menu. But I know I fixed it, so we'll get to that. And in the interim, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a file in Windows and just drag it over. That's how silly I am. So let's drag this over. So here we go. That's a long name. This truncates. So you see dot, dot, dot. Now when I click it to focus it, it shows the full name. That's how it is in Windows. That's what I like. That's the way I like it. And it's not truncating exactly the same, but it is. Actually, no, it is for the most part. Not actually. In Windows, this F is not there. All the document.rtf fit on one line. It's a never-ending battle to get this icon perfect. Let's ignore that for now. So when you unfocus, it truncates. When you focus, it doesn't. It untruncates. But if you do multiple selections, you see it's big at the same time. Now, the reason that's bad, let's refresh here. Oh, refresh worked, but rename doesn't. Whatever. We'll fix it. So you see here when it's in the middle, like that, that's okay at the moment from a z-index point of view. But when you start to select 3 of them, that doesn't look right. When you get the boxes covering each other, that I'm not a fan of. That's not Windows-esque. So when multiple are selected, I just want it to truncate. How did I do that? Simply enough, it looks like I've added a class. That might be the lazy way out, but that's how I've done it. I am trying to avoid adding classes a lot of the time in the favor of trying to do it as styled components as possible, like passing a prop. But I think this was one case where it didn't quite make sense, but I could be wrong, to be honest there. I mean, this could easily have been a prop at the same time. So now with the fig caption, the place where the text is, I say class name. If the focused entry length, because I already know about the focused entries array, if it's greater than 1, then we add the truncate class. Otherwise, we don't add anything. And then as far as the other piece of this puzzle, it's actually quite simple. We find the fig caption where it happens. Here it is here. So when line clamp is set back to default, then it untruncates. But when line clamp is set to 2, it only does 2 lines. What we're going to say is do that, but not if truncate class is applied. That's the little CSS magic we added. So now when we select 1, you see it's untruncated, but if we select 2, it's not. So you see you select 1, okay, but then when I pick the other one, there we go, it gets small. I'm okay with that behavior, although it's a little ugly, but then at least when you select these all, they look to be somewhat close to they have separators between them at least. That is more like Windows, which is what I'm going for. Let's commit it. Truncate if more than one item is selected. Yeah, I like that wording. I support that wording. Next up is this one. Selection property inside. What? Selection property inside File Explorer. Oh, right. This was a bug I realized later. So you see here how this works, right? The reason that that's working actually, it turns out that my math was relative to the entire window. So it assumes whenever I do this, and that first little position there. So let's say I do it here. I start from up here. Then it's saying start position is like 1 pixel down by 1 pixel left maybe. And it bases that all the time on that. So let's see, when I open File Explorer here, you'll see the problem. Watch, I'll make a window here and then I try to do it. You see how the selection's at the bottom. So I click down and then I drag, it's in the wrong spot. And if I maximize here, you'll see, and I try it here, it's a little better. It does left good there, but the height's a little wrong. So basically, it needs to calculate from within its container and not from within the window container. For that, I needed to add some stuff, and I think we'll need to take a peek at it. I needed to do some offsetting, and I think that's where I actually add to the intersection function. First, let's change the file entry index. Paste it in and let's see what we changed. What have we messed up now, so to speak? There we go. Index. So in the file entry props, I've added the file manager ref. So what I'm saying, for each file entry, I'm going to have to pass in a reference to its container. Do I though? Couldn't I just say it's parent? I know it's the parent. Is there any reason I'm not doing that? Maybe I should just do that. I mean, it is... Wait, no, it's not the parent, though, because this is... What is this? there's the ref here, the button. The button's a button. But the parent is an li. I want to get the OL, the organized list element. So I could just say the parent of the parent, but you know what? Let's not do that. Let's just pass it in and keep it clean and not do any DOM guessculation kind of stuff. So we bring in the OL list. And it looks like I changed a little bit of here. I added that the file manager needs to exist, obviously. Oh, I've added a property, right. Oh, I need to pass that the container that the entry is within. So I need to know that third rectangle. So within this box, here's where the entry is. Here's where your selection is. Do they intersect? Versus it's trying to do that, but it thinks the box is bigger, so it doesn't know you're there. It thinks you're up here currently. So we need to also have that containing box. That was it for that change. Basically just to pass the containers rectangle. So now we need to update the selection rectangle code. Let me just take a peek at what I've done. So we'll just inspect the function, and I'll just paste my new code in, and we'll take a peek at it. I'll look at the diff, because I like to look at the diffs, because then it makes it easier what changed. So yeah, now we pass in that container element. And then as far as the offset, the only thing I did is the element left minus the container left. The element top minus the container's top. So I just subtracted the container positions. I mean, without understanding this, that seems like a basic idea enough. And the third piece of the puzzle was changing some stuff in uSelection that I don't know what the heck I changed. Let's look together. It's good to get a refresher myself to try to remember. It's like, did I make the best choice here? So oh, right. I went from page X to client X. I'm not sure if it makes a difference, but I just started finding docs that were like, you should probably be using client X and not page X. But I don't think it makes a difference, honestly. We get the container. Wait a minute. What is this? This is for the uSelection hook. So I already had the container ref. But I wasn't offsetting. I have to offset the selection too. Right, I offset the selection and I offset the position of the element. Does that make sense? I mean, I know it works already, but am I doing double work here? Could I just not do two things instead of doing two things? I feel like it's like I add something and take it away. I don't think that's the case here. I think I'm offsetting where yeah, I have to offset in both cases based on where it's contained within to get the math the way that I'm expecting, it seems. Let's just say that's okay for now because it doesn't add a ton of complexity. Basically the same idea. Whereas before you had the X and Y, now you take the bounding rectangle and you subtract the left and the top. The X and it's X and it's Y. Why don't I just use X and Y in this case then? X, Y. And I'll call it target X and target Y. I think that makes more sense. Why mix metaphors? Hopefully that works, because that was a minor change. And I think it's the same exact thing here. This seems a little repetitive. So on mouse move, you calculate the size. And on mouse down is when you calculate the position. Okay, so they're actually doing different things, but it seems quite similar. Here it's setting position, and it's based X, Y. Okay. So it seems the most slightest bit redundant, but I don't think it is too much. Let's see if that worked. That was the only 3 changes. Oh, I missed this change. Right, I have to pass the ref to the entries. Right. So we'll just figure this out. The file manager index, and it's going to be right here. Yeah, the file entry says it's missing that. Let's put it up here, I guess, alphabetically speaking. Yeah, we passed the ref along that we already had because we were already doing some selection stuff with it, right? Okay, so it's all very interconnected, the selection logic. Again, let's see if it works. So now so this selection still works as expected, and now when we go into the folder, There we go. Now that's in the right spot. And when you select, yeah, there we go. So that's what we actually wanted. And if it leaves the bounds of its container, it resets, which is nice. I don't know if it does that in Windows. It's the way I want it done. Not everything's going to be exactly the same, I guess. But as long as it's not the same because I prefer it the way, and it's not because, oh, it was too tough, you know, or I couldn't figure it out. If that's the case, it's just like I need to just try harder, take more time with it. If I can't figure it out, you know, it doesn't even make sense, honestly. I mean, like, just through like I don't know if it's first principles is what should be used in this idea here, but like that's all I'm doing for this entire project and the way I'm reverse engineering it is like, well, how would it work? And then I just make it that way. I'm not like, not for every single thing Googling, how does Windows do the context menu, you know? How do they make the box look like that? How do they add the line? No, I just like, how would I do it, you know? How would I do it if I deleted the source code by mistake and I had to make it again in a panic? Improvements to renaming. Isn't renaming still broken? Let me try again here. Well, how did I ever... Maybe we need to go to the commit where I fix that before I deal with improvements to renaming, because I don't have a good way to test renaming right now because I've broken another thing. So I think the fact that we jumped ahead to this one here is why we broke it. So maybe this was it here. Proper blur focus on... No, on drop. That's wrong. Empty blur entry to blur all. Because this is the one I added, but it's causing me a headache now. So what happened? Yeah, it's hard to know where I fixed the renaming or fixed the clicking. Focus on right-click file. Could it have been this? No, I don't think it could have been. So before we get into improvements on renaming, I want to figure out when I fixed this right-click, or I just solve it. I don't want to solve it. Basic reset for blur. Which one could it be? What's this again? This is for drop. This is just not the right thing. Okay, maybe we skip improvements on renaming for now. We're going to get to it, but we need to do the ones that we can test. Unfortunately, I can't test that one at the moment. The next one, focus on right-click a file. Right, so if you left-click a file, it's focused, but if I right-click it, it's not focused. So right-click, no focus. But if I left-click it and it's focused, and then I right-click, it does stay focused. So I just want right-clicking it to automatically focus it. That's how Windows works, I believe. I believe that's how it works. And as far as the code, it's actually quite trivial, it looks like. But I'm going to copy paste it because I don't want to make any more mistakes. I feel like I'm making mistakes sometimes here. Because how could I have done the renaming thing if I hadn't gotten there yet? That's where I'm really confused. I added focus entry to the use file context, which also means I need to update the use file context. Use file context state. Now I'm passing focused entry. Whoa, that is not the correct file. Which file was it? Use file context. Use file context. There we go. Yeah, I didn't mean to change the other one. Other one should undo its changes. Undo that. I didn't do that. This one, yes. Here we go. Added focus entry. And then when you right-click the file context, it focuses the file and then opens the file context, pretty much like before. This syntax looks a little wonky. Wasn't I doing that before, though? Basically, I wasn't passing... before event was being passed in because I was using this function directly as the event handler, whereas now the event handler is its own function, but I'm passing the event along so that it's still part of the context menu because I absolutely need that event. Let's see if it's fixed. Right click. There we go. Now it's focused. So when I right click, it focuses and stays focused. Focus on right click. Close these windows that are in my way. And back to the browser. Not at this yet. We skipped to that one and just did it. Let me get this out of the way. No slash for ignore files. Right, this is just something I noticed when I looked at a Next.js boilerplate, is that they didn't have the forward slashes in their ignore. And then when I thought about it, I was like, you know what, I don't really need it either. I think that's all I did. In this case, it's just that. Same with this case. I thought in one case I added something. Here, I actually added the Husky to the ESLint ignore, because I didn't want that running there. It wasn't running for git ignore or prettier ignore, but I was linting it, even though it's not really code that I control. So let's update all of those. So for ESLint, we're going to ignore Huskies underscore folder and then get rid of all these backslashes. Now there's 5 entries, yep. For git ignore, we're going to get rid of the slashes. Just less code. And for prettier ignore, we're going to get rid of the slashes. Anytime I can get rid of those, I prefer it. It's just it's super minor again, though, but hard to argue that it's not cleaner in some ways. I mean, I guess you could argue that. Oh, wait. Darn it, did I not commit this? That's sloppy. What was that called? Focus on right-click file. Did I paste it here at least? Oh, yeah, I pasted it here, but I didn't do it here. So focus on right-click file. We're going to stage these 2 changes, which were the separate changes, because I forgot to commit those. That was an accident. Now those are done, and now we get the no slash for ignore files. And ignore Husky, but I'm not even going to mention it, because it's that minor. Okay. That's that day done, except for improvement to renaming, which we'll figure out when we figure out why it's broken. Updated packages, we don't need to do that again because we already did. Adjust power icon width. Right, this is something I missed last time. I had this in my code at one point and then I forgot that I needed it. The power button looks a little chunky. This here is a little thick, thicker than it needs to be. And the way that I fixed that was with the stroke width. So let's just find this previous setting here. And we're going to add below the stroke, we're going to add a stroke width for the power button of half, basically halving it. Halving it. Adjust power icon width. Don't mind if I do. That was a real minor one, right? Am I right? Oh, where did it go? Now I've lost. Here. Okay, allow heading and sidebar. Okay, I like that I might have done these in little chunks. So first thing I did is add heading, because the heading is basically a way for one of the start menu text entries to be bold, because the start word is bold in Windows. So I've decided to add the idea of a heading, which could mean that you could have more than one heading, but it is really the heading. You see here I've added it to start. So it has a heading of true, heading's optional, pass heading here to the sidebar buttons, and if it is a heading, then you wrap it in strong tags, which will make it bold. And in a future commit, I have to fix this, because strong is actually too strong. It should be a little, I think, I'm trying to remember, but I think that's a little too strong. It needs to be a little less strong. I might just do that now in this commit, because it's kind of connected. But where did I do it? Move buttons up. Did I just slip that fix in somewhere? Let me just check if I snuck it in here. Nope. All right, let's just do them one at a time. But darn it, I know it's wrong. Base, reset, blur. Added animated sidebar. Could that have been when I did it? The basic concept is that I added font. Oh yeah, here it is here. Font weight strong should be 600 on Fig Caption. Let's fix that. Because yeah, if we're doing Fig Caption here and we're adding strong here, let's add it correctly here. This is the sidebar index. Let's start there. Sidebar/index. Paste in the changes, and the other one we'll have to open is the styled sidebar, I think, for that other piece of the commit. Styled sidebar button actually is what we need. Here it is. So the button has a fig caption, and it's currently display none. But we also want the strong weight to be 600 when it does display. So we're jumping ahead a little bit because currently we don't even show the text. But at least now when we show it, it'll be correct. So that's the only change there. And here we just added that heading piece like you saw. I will call that allow heading in sidebar. Close all these little diffs. And jump to the next piece. Move bottom buttons up on sidebar by switching from a margin to padding, right? So if you see here, when I open the sidebar, this button here is actually a little bit below the start menu. I'm not 100% sure why I used a margin there and why it doesn't quite work. I think the margin's not accounting for some padding maybe, but the padding accounts for the margin? I don't even know, honestly. All I know is that that solves it. Let's just try it. Just trust me on this one. So it's the one that was margin top 4. This is in the styled sidebar, so we're switching from margin top. Oh, right, so maybe the margin at the top is pushing it down a little bit, but with padding, it works in a different way, and the adjustment happens where I expect it to happen. Yeah, now you can see that the bottom border of the button is that line right there, but it didn't mess up anything here either, so that's cleaner. Yeah, you see here I wanted a little bit of spacing, and I think that little bit of spacing, when you use margin, is pushing everything down, versus when you do padding, it just pushes down the top, but the bottom stays locked where it's supposed to be. Which basically means that commit is done, as small as it was. Move bottom buttons up onto taskbar. Yeah, they're currently a little bit below the taskbar. Next one up, add animated sidebar. So this one has a little bit of action to it. This is the big piece where we kind of get the sidebar going. This is a lot of CSS to explain. I'm struggling to justify my reasoning for the CSS, so we're gonna discover it together. So here's the styled sidebar. That clearly changed a lot. Let's start there. And as far as just to level set on what the sidebar is that I'm calling the sidebar, it's this piece right here. So with these 4 buttons, and you see now when we hover, there's already some styling. You see it turns dark a little bit, and there's some kind of effect going on there, but we don't have everything done yet. Basically how it works on Windows is when you hover over it for some amount of time, a bar comes out with some names of stuff. I don't have the thing where I'm clicking it yet. Currently, I just have the animation. But let's see what the first part is. So first up, I say translation duration is 150 milliseconds. So that's just how long it takes to do its thing, to become this width, I think. No. This is the default duration when hover is not applied. So when it hovers, it's going to change to a different duration and in 400 milliseconds, it'll become big. When you unhover, it's going to go back to this transition number, and then it'll close in 150 milliseconds. So this is just to make it close faster. This overflow hidden is so that when one element's size is perhaps a little bit above the other, that they stay within each other. Otherwise, the child elements that have the text can actually go outside of the container as it's resizing, just subtly, because of slight differences in durations and stuff. So that explains that piece. This is the width, which has been moved to the theme, I think. Or no, we already may have possibly had this theme value. But the width wasn't being set before, so the width was just whatever. And if you had done that and weren't hiding the text, then it would have already been big, but we never got to see it big. So now that we're explicitly setting the width by default is 48, and then we have an expanded width that after 400 milliseconds of hovering will expand the width. And this is the way that it'll expand. So I've tried to use this cubic Bezier thing to get this like quick and then slow effect a little bit, because that's kind of in the same way that I did it for the start menu using framer motion. It's odd that I'm not using framer motion here, actually. I'm trying to think why I didn't. Honestly, it's a good question. I probably should just use framer motion in this case. I mean, I don't need it, clearly. But why not, right? Let's add it to the show notes. Maybe for next stream. Switch to framer motion for sidebar animations, question mark? So I haven't, and it's already pretty simple as is, so it's not a big deal. But I could probably move these things into framer motion and make it a motion object, and then you get a little more power by doing that with it, which could come in handy later. We got a shadow on the thing that appears when you hover after that duration. You see here how I say transition on all. So the shadow and the width are going to transition after that 400 milliseconds. Although this isn't a delay. That's an interesting point. It's not a delay. Oh, right, it's a mixture. So it has the delay. Why are there two of them? Let's take a peek at this transition value, because I can't describe it to you. CSS transition. I'm trying to see what it is when you do three of them. So this is 3 here. Does it explain? Ah. So in this case, it's the duration and the delay. Oh, okay, right. So that's fair. So yeah, I'm saying I want it to be delayed. So don't start the animation until after 400 milliseconds, and then take 400 milliseconds to do the animation on all things. It doesn't apply for this anyways, I think. So this is to give a blur. It doesn't quite look right yet because I've got too many overlapping backdrop filters now, so it's not blurring the way I want. But that's to fix it another day, and I have a note to fix it. And then on the LI items, when I hover the main menu on the sub items, which are the icons, they also have their own transition that's going to match this transition, where they also have their width change. Now this seems a little repetitive, but it's the way that I ended up needing to do it, basically. Why am I doing it that way? I think this logic could be in the other file. I might move it to the other file, honestly. Let's think about it. But so this is part of it, and then it's saying that its sub items basically have matching speeds. There is some niceness to putting it here, but there's also an argument to say, you know what, this is a styled component. These LIs, just move this logic into the styled component. Anyways, this and this are basically the same, but for the LI, I'm saying only affect the width. Why am I saying that? Because I don't want any of these other effects to also get a transition on them. So only the width should have a transition. And then for the fig caption, I'm saying it becomes visible. I guess I could just say visibility here, but let's just say all is easier. So I also wanted a transition here. I had to do 3 different transitions. I don't know why. I think it was to get the right fading, but I'm not happy with this transition. Let's try to not have this and see what happens. And like I say, I might want to move this one. Let's get to the next piece of the file change, which is, so that was this file. Oh yeah, there's the theme. Let's add this to the theme really quick. Was sizes on line 26. Right, basically here, I guess. So yeah, for the sidebar, the expanded width is 220 after it expands out. And I also had to clarify the icon size, which is 16 pixels for those icons. Several of them are 16 pixels, but I wanted to clarify. I guess this here shows that I'm not using the same format. That's a little weird. This I should have just called icon size. Are there any others where I do that? No. That's something to fix another time. I'll make a note of that, I guess. That's not even noteworthy, barely. Sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied today. Not sure why. Just slow, maybe slow in the head today. Next file to change is the styled sidebar button itself, this LI that we keep talking about, which is a list item. Let's paste those changes, which are also quite hefty, I believe. And let's see what they are. So in this case, for the highlight button bar, the blue, you see here when you click, you see this, oh, it's a little wonky right now. Let's ignore that. But you see there's a little blue bar on the left. That blue bar, when I switched this to be flex, that blue bar moved 1 pixel to account for the border, I think, or something. I'm not sure. But I don't want that. So I've just explicitly said here, no, the border is supposed to be right at the left. Let's just be clear on that. Now this here of setting to display flex and place item center, that was to be able to get the icon centered along with the label. Now by centering it, it only centers it in one position. I didn't want to do place content also because that would try to move the text and the button into the middle of that bar. So I've kept that as is. And what I've done is I've switched the SVG to specifying the padding. Because before, it was just this 48 pixel box, and it was very easy to know the center is here. But now that we are going to make the box bigger, we need to go, you know what, don't worry about that kind of centering. Just stay on the left, and then I'll tell you, I want you to be this many pixels out, let's say. And that's what I basically did here is I used the icon size as the left. But wait, what? Oh yeah, because that's where the icon starts from. Does that make sense? No. I think it makes sense when you consider that the icon is dead center of a box that just happens to be shaped the same as its size. Like the icon 16 and it's 16 here and it's 16 there. Is that what's going on? It feels like this should be like icon size divided by 2 or something, I would have thought. Well, if this works, let's take it before we save this. I guess we've already messed it up to the point where it's just looking wonkier and wonkier by the minute. I mean, it makes sense height and width where we set icon size, but I would have thought that the left positioning of it, I'm surprised that that matches the icon size, and I don't know how clear it is to say left position is the same as its width. Like, okay, if you say so. Now here for fig caption, I've stopped using display none, and we're going to show it, but only on hover would you see it, because on hover is when the box gets big enough for it to become visible, I think. It has visibility hidden, right. So the text isn't even visible. I wonder if that's necessary with no overflow. Maybe we don't need that no more. Let's try to get rid of that in both cases. Then here we don't need anything. Let's try that because the fig, now with overflow hidden, I would be surprised that you even need to hide this. Let's see. Now this transition oh, right. That was part of the problem. I think when you open the menu originally, the text in Windows at least appears in a moment, not instantly. Let's try to ignore these two things and just see what it looks like. So ignore those for a moment. Let's go back to see what other things changed. We might end up using that. Oh no. Commenting in CSS with the way my auto thing works is a bit of a mess. What did it do here? Well, it didn't mangle it too much. Ignore that. Otherwise, it's okay. So what else did we end up setting here? Sidebar width. Okay, that makes sense. That's the initial width. So the initial width, as we know, is that 48 pixel box. So it's saying the text doesn't start until after that box. So position it at the left. Now this margin bottom left, 1 pixel. This is just a minor adjustment that I seem to have needed for it to work for me. Although now that I think about it, I wonder if that's because it has a 1 pixel border or something, an invisible border. Because if I did that, I'd get the same effect. I think. 1 pixel solid transparent. That's like the same as this, basically, I think. I mean, it's not. It is on the left on the bottom, but not on the top and the right. I think it might get the desired effect, though. And then white space, no wrap. As it's resizing, we don't want the text to try to wrap for the container. We want it to always be as long as possible. And position absolute is because we're setting it to the left. So we have to say, hey, we want to use absolute positioning here. Okay, so let's see if we didn't need some of that stuff. Ugh, keeps mangling this. Darn it. There. That works. Oh my gosh. Now it's getting a bit brutal. Let's just cut this piece out. And where was that other piece of garbage code? Here. It's very possible I need this stuff, but let's just try it without it for a second. I'm going to paste it over here to get it out of the way. The code looks more simple here. This was to handle those margins. We've gotten rid of the visibility thing, so let's see what it looks like now. Refresh this. So we open it. So that looks okay. Honestly, it doesn't look bad. I think I actually got what I was going for there. So you see now when we hover, we get a decently nice transition. And it does take a little bit of time. I haven't compared Pixel Perfect, so I don't want to worry too much about those adjustments I made, but I'm happy with them. So that looks good. In that case, we're not going to worry about that little 50 millisecond duration, which was also the reason why visibility needed to exist. I don't know why this needed to exist. This seems unnecessary. And then this, we've decided to just go with the border. Okay. So let's take one more peek at what we did then. So the overflow hidden, that helps with the visibility. These are easy enough. So this I was saying could possibly be moved here. I think that's still the case. We have hover of the item, but what we could do here is we could say the styled sidebar on hover, and then what styling happens here would be this. Because, yeah, I'm not 100% sure I like the idea of centralizing it here, though. I mean, first off, I'm not sure this will work. I might have messed something up here. But if it does work, it's like, I've got these numbers. I mean, I guess I should centralize this part in the theme, honestly, and this cubic Bezier thing. These pieces should be part of the theme. Then this wouldn't be so messy looking. Because I like that styled sidebar on hover, you just focus on increasing your width. But then here in the button itself, oh, if the sidebar has been hovered, then okay, we got to do this. Let's see if it works, because I actually prefer that. Yeah, it looks good. So it worked. Okay, cool. I much prefer using that styled component technique then, of saying its parent component is hovered, then I want you to do this. This is my way of doing the parent selector with styled components. So that was kind of a cool animation. We might switch to framer motion in the future. I don't know about that, but either way, we're done. This piece. So paste that. Added animated sidebar. Yes, you did, Dustin. High five yourself. Or don't. But anyways, let's commit it. Oh wait, what did I not save? Okay, I'm hesitating then. If I didn't save something, then my test wasn't valid. Let's go back to the test and try it again and see if I actually did hoop it. Still looks good to me. I mean, I need to wait. No, there's a problem. Yeah, something doesn't look right. See that when it's going away, I feel like the word apps, I'm seeing it as it's going away in a way that's a little sloppy. Actually, maybe I'm wrong. It ends so quick that it's hard to say. Let's just leave it for now. I'm not unhappy with that. And I didn't really like the tweaks I had before, so let's just try to go with this one. Now we've separated the things into the right places. Good. Close all these million little boxes. Actually, it was only like 4, not a million. Okay, on to the next one. Another one bites the dust. Oh, where were we on this? We did this. We did that. We did this. Here we were. We were at the dragging animation. Dragging animation? What the heck did I do here? Oh boy. This looks like not a minor thing what I've done here. What did I do here? Oh, right. This is a big one. So, right, I've also added support for being able to drag these icons. So right now you can drag from Windows onto the desktop. But once the icon's here, you see I can't move it. Ugh, it won't move. So the next step is to be able to drag these. And that's a big step. And that's what I've done. So I'm happy about that. I'd kind of forgot I did it. Let's see what I did. So first one is the file manager. Let's go into the file manager index and see what needed to change there to facilitate this. So I've had to create a hook called use draggable entries. Okay. And then it's like, same with like what I've already got with focusable entry, where I say focusable entry from file, very similar actually. Draggable entry is another hook where I say the styled file entry can also be draggable. That looks good. The draggable entry doesn't exist yet, but from a simplification point of view, I've added draggable entry hook where I pass its file to the styled file entry. That's part of the hook stuff that I like, you know, from a simplicity point of view. Start there, in other words. Start just by making a hook that's like, does magic thing. And then you start building, it's like, well, what would magic thing have to do first, you know? Okay. We're going to call it the use draggable entries.ts. Is that what I called it? Oh, nice. It is. Okay. This file is completely new, so we'll just look through it. This is just the type for it of what it exports. So it exports a draggable Boolean. So this stuff goes directly onto the element. So the draggable is a native HTML5 concept. HTML5. Actually, it might even be HTML4. I have no idea. Not web school. There we go. Draggable. Yeah, the user may select draggable element. So you can just set an element as draggable, and then you get all these features basically. That was interesting to me right away. So we set the Boolean to true. We got drag in as a Boolean to know if we're moving the icon. We got on drag start and on drag end. So that handles basically all the dragging events on the element. And what is this? And then it returns that function, which takes the file and returns the props. So the function is the big part here. It's returning these 4 props. Draggable true, okay. On drag start, it needs that file that gets passed in. Now let's see what on drag start was doing. So it takes the file, it sets dragging to true. Okay, that's simple enough. It goes to all the focused entries and blurs them. Cool. And then it focuses on the entry itself. That's simple enough. So there's not a huge amount that it's doing there. And then what's drag end? Drag end just sets it to false. So just getting this Boolean was useful, basically. Seems like that's a big part of the code. Next up is the use focusable entries piece. Okay. Interesting. So this is something I didn't notice that I just broke a second ago. Right, I broke this, I think. Because this is wrong. Right, before use focusable entries was returning an object that had one thing in it. I've decided to change that to be this logic where it just returns the function directly. And I need to update use focusable entries. This is kind of unrelated to the task, but it's to make it consistent with this other hook that I just made. Not much had to change. Basically, just instead of returning the object, it just returns the type itself. And now the return is here instead of declaring an element and then returning it like that. Almost nothing changed there. But like I said, that was to make it more consistent. So the styled file entry, that will need to change. That's where some things will change. Styled file entry. Let's take a look at the diff. Now I've made this thing called styled file entry props so that I can have a file entry prop called dragging that changes quite a few things. So basically I want it to be focused, but when it's dragging, I don't want the border, I don't want the background, I don't want all that stuff that makes it look focused. Because you know it's focused, you're holding the mouse down and you're dragging the thing. So that's really all that I've done here, is that the dragging Boolean is deciding whether hovering will show a background, whether it shows a border, whether when you focused it does those things or when you focused and hover. So in the hover, focus and hover states, get rid of the styling if we're dragging. And this was the way I decided to do it. I'm not sure if it's the best way. Simple enough, but not so simple that a monkey could do it. Unless he had infinite time and typewriters. Then I guess he could. There we go. That is another one. This is the style of the file entry. No, what did I just change here? This is in the views. Let's take a peek at what I changed. Yes, so I made the prop for that dragging that got exported. I've turned selecting to not optional. This is just another improvement, I think, to the file manager props. What is this? What did I do here? This was just wrong, I guess. This is just when, as I was making the dragging hook and its props and stuff, I realized this is required. So you know what? This is required too, actually. Because I want to put this prop on the element. And then I just added that the same way I added it here so that it's a styled component that also has these props and also has the theme, you know? That's all that needed to change there. That's another minor one. Oh, and that was it? What did I do then? Dragging animation. That was it to get dragging, I guess. Let's take a peek. So refresh the page here. And now the item, when I drag, there we go. Oh, sorry, dudes. I didn't switch to it. Here we go. So there's an item, and then I click down, and look at that. I'm dragging it now. Oh, man, you guys can't see it. Well, in the screen share, unfortunately, it doesn't show. That's interesting, but it doesn't show. Anyways, if you see my cursor has a little plus, and on my screen for me, not on the screen share, I do see the icon like that, but without the border, the blue border. And that's how it looks in Windows. So it did work, but not for the purposes of screen sharing it to you guys and girls. Let's just commit that, though. I don't want to think too much about it. So dragging animation, and then we also tweaked focus. We tweaked a little bit of stuff so that it was consistent with what I was doing with dragging animation. That's the first part of the puzzle, because I also, this episode, handle internal drag and drop. I've got it now. I got it. I got it, guys. Don't worry. I got this. But where is it? Okay, right here, internal drag and drop. Why did I say part 1? I guess, I don't know if I fixed it or finished it. I think I finished it through this episode, but probably not in this commit, I guess. Let's take a quick peek. What did I do here? So, handle file input. Right, this part's minor. This is in regard to the file manager functions. Let's start there. Right, so if we remember, there's this handle file input that handles the drag and drop events. It handles the drag and drop events. I think it handles 2 things, actually. Right, for drag and drop and for... right, for when you upload a file. So it can handle several types of events where you pass in a file in the end. And we're essentially going to try to do something similar. But what we're going to do now is we're going to say, you know what, you don't actually have to pass... Or I might not give you back the buffer. So it's like when you get the input, it's like, here's a file. But in this case, we already have the file. So I'm saying the buffer can be optional. And then what we do, there won't be any files in the drop event. There will still be a drop event, but it won't have any files. And because of that, we're going to make the callback differently in that the buffer will be optional. So when we do the callback, we're just going to pass the file path. But here, when there was files, we were also getting that buffer. So the callback is to make a new file. But without the buffer, it needs to know, okay, if you didn't give me the file, I'll see if I've got it. I think is the logic of what I'm trying to do here. So how did I get the file name, the file path? That's coming from the event target, the same event target that I got the event files from, but it's this other system called getData, where you can specify some data when you first create the dragging event, and then when you drop it, you can get the data via this getText. So we'll get to that step in a minute, but the basics of it is that the event had the text path of the internal file, and then in the callback, I'm just passing the path with no buffer, and by doing that, it's knowing, oh, okay, I'll go look for the file. That's that piece. Why did this have to change? Oh, I think I need to know the entire path for the draggable entry. I think that's why. For the focusable entry, the file name is enough, but for the draggable, I need the whole thing so that I can tell the other side the path. So I can tell where I dropped it. Hey, this is the path, the entire path. Versus in focus, I have that internal knowledge of where the directory is. Use draggable entries. I changed a little bit. Let's see how. We'll open it up, take a peek at the diff. So now instead of saying I'm getting a file, I'm getting a full path now. And on drag start, I'm passing the path instead of the file. And now I also specified drag event handler here because I needed to use the event and I wanted types to work properly. Because now I do just like before where we blur all the other items and we focus the item just like before. Oh wait, was focus not working? I guess to focus you need to have... Oh, wait a minute. No. Okay, so for focus you do just need the file like I had before. And I'm getting it again from base name. I wonder if I should just pass them both here because that's kind of redundant. I almost think I should. So here I'm just going to pass the URL and the file. And we'll call the URL on this end. And we'll just call it URL as well. The URL and the file as another string. There we go. I think I'd rather do it on that end. That means that here is where I need it. So here, and then this can stay file like it was before. So focus entry only needs the file. So instead of doing base name again, I can just do the join here. So I'll switch that to a join, and then I don't need to join it and then base name to get something back. That's kind of silly. What changed here? Expected to... Oh, okay, I have to pass them both in on both ends, right? It's a little repetitive there. No? What happened? I need to specify it in like 47 spots, unfortunately. There, I'll specify it here too. Wait, can I just do this? Type draggable entry? No, because I'm literally defining it there. I guess I could do that. No. Let's not worry about it. Okay. It still works just the same. Let's go back to the diff just to make sense of it. Right, so this didn't change at all. The only thing that changed is at the end, I say event.dataTransfer set data as plain text plain of that file path. So here's where you do the set data, and then remember in that other place is where you do the get data. Otherwise, this didn't really change too much. And is this the last folder? No, this is a minor change we can do right now. We just need to, again, clarify that the buffer can be empty. Wait, did I have it in two places? No, absolutely I did not. Here it is. So, right, we've already said the callback requires a buffer. We're going to say that that's optional. And here we're going to say it's optional too, because here's where handle file input happens. So the callback doesn't necessarily need to expect that buffer when it does add file. Okay. That gets us pretty far. The last piece of the puzzle is that we have to change the command that actually adds the file. And that is in the use folder. Oops. Now let's look at this last diff and see what we've done here. I'll ignore that import until I see if it was justified. Oh, I did a few rename fixes here. It looks like, darn it. This commit's got my rename changes. That's unfortunate from a confusing as heck point of view, because we're not there yet. So we'll ignore the rename changes, and I'm going to have to do this a different way, unfortunately. There. No. There we go. So now it's unchanged. We're going to manually add these changes. I actually didn't change a huge amount. Oh, wait. Did all I change was a new path? All I changed was a new path. So let's just go to new path. And I'm going to copy the entire function. And there we go. New path. Where are you? Here. Okay. Now let's take a peek and see if it's a little more minor. Yeah, the change is a little more minor now because we haven't fixed the rename issues yet. That's okay. So now when it comes in, we already had an optional buffer here. So if there's no buffer, but the name is a path. Ah, okay, right. So the way that this new path command typically works is it already knows what folder it's in. So it knows its directory. So when you go directory name on it, it's not going to have it. It's going to just be dot. Because the name is expected to be a file name, but it can be a path in this case where it's an existing file. So that's why I say I do the dir name check to see, is this a name or does it have a directory? And when there is no directory, it'll be a dot. Otherwise, it's not. And let's ignore what it does for a second and just make sure the code here didn't change at all. Yeah, none of this changed at all. So it's purely just this additional condition that is there no buffer and is the name actually a directory path? Because there can be a no buffer and then it's just an empty file. Or no, sorry, if there's no buffer, it's a folder. If there's and you can make an empty buffer to make an empty file, or you can have no buffer and have a name as a path to do a rename. And that brings us to this part here. So the new name is where we join the directory that we know about, this directory, the use folder one, and the base name of the path. This is to make the new path. So then we double check that the name that was passed in doesn't equal the new name. I could avoid that, I guess, if I just checked it here. Would it be the same as directory, I wonder? I'm thinking here, like, what if I do like dot or directory name includes the dir name here? Input it doesn't. So if the directory name is not a dot or the current directory, because if it's the current directory, then doing this would turn new name into what name already is. So then we don't need that, I think. In that case, we don't need new name either. We could just directly dump it in here because we know the name will be okay. Because if it already was the right directory, and the reasoning for this is you can click the icon and drag and then just drop it right back in its same place. And it's going to trigger this event to occur. But this should make it know that its directory name matches the directory. Now I'm concerned there might be a trailing slash scenario where this doesn't work, but we'll see if we get there. If I try to drag into the same folder and it breaks, then we know that's why. Otherwise, this is a simpler command. So it's just the file system rename command where it takes the name. Yeah. It takes the original name, which is the path, and then it puts it in the new path, and then and running the update files rename function. Does that make sense? I think that this actually is partially flawed. I think I don't want to pass this directly, but I don't completely remember. That's another case where we're going to have to look at the previous commits. Let's take a peek and see if I fix that piece. Update source folder on drag. Is that it? No. It's a good idea, though. It's another improvement that we could do. I guess we can just do this in steps. Let's not try to look too far into that one. So let's finish this one. Internal drag and drop part 1. I don't want there to be a part 1, though, honestly. Don't pass function directly. Here it is. Yeah, here we go. So, right. The reasoning is that This was, by this doing it, it's taking event and it's passing event into the update files function as the first argument. And update files function actually acts differently if there's an argument. So that was a mistake. So that should have been like this, actually. And I think that other commit was also of some value. What was the other one? I keep losing track of where I am. Right, we're just finishing this one. And then we did that one, did not pass the function directly. The update source on drag, I think that's something we can fix now too, because that's also a very minor one. Actually, let's just do that one last, or let's not do that one. Yeah, let's do these other ones after. So we combined this one and this one because this was like a bug from this. But we will call it internal drag and drop initial commit or something like that. Let's test it out, right? We don't even know if it works. Let's refresh this. So first, if I drag and I drop here, okay, that didn't crash. So I'm thinking that my code worked from before. But if we open the folder here and we drag and drop there we go. So we got the file and it appears here. Now you notice it didn't disappear here. That's actually just an error. If I right click and press refresh, it is gone. But we'll fix that in the next commit because I don't want to overburden this commit. Even though that is a glaring mistake. I mean, oversight mistake. Who's to say what it is? Internal drag and drop initial phase. I don't like that term, but I just used it. Okay, that gets us through this. Let's move on to the next piece then, which is update source folder on drag. Right, so that I wanted that other thing to refresh on drag as well. Looks like use draggable entries is what mostly needs to change for that to occur. Use draggable entries. What did I change? What did I change? Please tell me. Oh, darn it. This changed more than I wanted. Now it's converted back to the system that I don't prefer, which was this. So that's the problem with copying, pasting, and then changing commits that you change again. So I didn't want any of this to happen. There we go. That's all back to, oh, even this part's wrong too. Good. Gosh darn it. This is supposed to be like that. So little changed in all honesty. There we go. What changed here? Yeah, passed in update files and then run update files on drag end. Let's run it first or after. I feel like it should be after. Like stop drag and then update the files. Let's do that. I'm taking creative control and switching the order of those two commands. Let's see if it fixed it. So let's put this back here. Oh, maybe that didn't work. Okay, it's there. It's not here. Okay, so now we take it and we drop it here. And that didn't work. Update. Oh, right. I'm not done yet. So it said we pass it in, but we haven't actually passed it in. Draggable entries. Here it is. So here we will pass in update files so that it has the ability to update the files in that folder. Refresh this. Okay, so we're going to drag it here and it should disappear. And it dropped. There we go. So now it's over here and it's not over there. And I can do back and forth. Nice. Oh, that brings me... Right. Browser FS is a little broken, I remember now. I'm trying to remember why. At the moment it's actually working decent, but there was some way to crash it that I had to fix. At some point today... Oh, there we go. Can't remember what reasoning why, but this actually is a bug in Browser FS. So we're gonna fix it. But I don't really remember how I fixed it. I think in the future I'll do a commit where I explain the fix. It's like really minor. It's like exactly the fix yeah. I think we won't show you that today because I literally don't have a commit for it, but I had to fix Browser FS. One day I'll show you guys a PR where I show you all the fixes I did, but that's just the issues with fixing libraries. This one was a minor fix, so you're really not missing anything. Let's demo this thing now. Oh yeah, we did demo it. Okay. Let's commit it then. Update source folder on drag. There we go. So that's a pretty cohesive one, except for the crashing that occurs. We'll get to that in a moment. That was, where was that? That was this. Next one is switch cursor to move instead of copy. Yeah, this is a neat little thing you can do. So the event data transfer set data, right? If you guys remember, we do set data when we start the drag event to say that it's got some text associated with it, which is the path. We can also add to the data transfer object of effect allowed. We can set it to move, basically. And the reason I'm doing it this way is that ESLint doesn't like me just doing this, because it's like the event is coming in and then I'm setting an attribute on it. This is just the preferred way to do it. I'm happy to do it this way too. I think it looks nice. So what move does versus take a quick peek at what this does, because I think there's a nice little explanation here somewhere of the icons. Well, it doesn't show you the icons, unfortunately. But basically when you drag, remember when I said before when I dragged how there was a little plus? Now it's going to look like a little box where you're like moving something. And I'll just show you it here. So you see when I drag now, you still don't see the icon, but under my cursor there's like a little dotted square, whereas before it was a plus symbol. The plus symbol represents copy, but the idea of what I'm doing is a move. So I've decided to go with move instead and let the browser just decide how it wants to make the cursor look. So I felt like that was a nice little subtle touch worth doing. Let's commit it. Switch cursor to move instead of copy. Just a little closer to how it is in Windows. Windows actually has a little tooltip when you do that. I'm not sure how to do that yet. That's customizing the cursor or something at that point. I'm not there yet, but I'll do it one day. We did this. Don't pass function. FS build. This is irrelevant. That's just updating the file system. I don't care about that. Updating packages we already did. Fix BFS bug. Right. So this is where I fixed the BFS bug. I don't think I fixed another one. So it's just right in here where I fixed it. Yeah, I don't have a good way to show you the difference, but we're going to at least take the new version. So it's a big minified file. I'm going to just copy and paste it into the right location on my computer, and then I'll show you guys it's changed. So if we go back to the code, here it is now. So it's a minified file that's changed. Basically, how I do it is I just take the browser FS repository by spelling it correctly. That's step one. Here it is. So I clone this repository, and then I followed the very simple instructions of just yarn install followed by build. Somewhere it says yarn build. I mean, it doesn't look simple the way they explain it here, but it actually is simple enough. It basically is you just clone it, yarn install, yarn build, and then I start trying to debug it. Fixed another issue in BFS. And like I said, one day I'm going to do a PR. It doesn't look like they're accepting PRs, honestly, anymore, but I'll do a PR, and then I'll show you guys every change I did. And I've already done one video where I showed a bunch of changes, but it involves me jumping to different VS Code, and really the change was minor. It was like, it's another callback mistake that they made, I think. It's a minor change. Okay. Next up. Don't pass function directly. No. FS build, we just did. Fix bug. Okay, so we've done everything from this week. Now, we have 2 weeks left, but what I just realized, actually, is this improvements to renaming may have been where I fixed the problem in the first place. Let's take a look here. Let me try the other buttons. So when I right-click, download. No, download doesn't work either. Darn it. Okay, so I've broken the context menu. Hopefully I fixed that in this episode. If not, it's going to be a follow-up. Let's make a note. Fix not being able to click things in the context menu. I know I fixed that in the past, but I wonder if in my improvising during the stream, I rebroke it, and I don't remember why a change that I did to the original commits was actually totally necessary. I'm not sure if we're there or not. So let's just keep ignoring improvements to renaming until we see if one of these things fixes the fact that I can't click anything. Basic sort function. I'm still on the fence about this, honestly. I added the ability to sort, but it's still not very good. I'm almost thinking of once again not including this. Yeah, honestly, I don't think I will. I'm going to bookmark it for myself so I have it. And I'm going to improve it, and then I'll show you guys it next week. But we're going to skip that one because I'm not proud of it. Only swap blur for buttons. What is this one here? Oh, this is the change that I did and then I undid because I wasn't happy about it. Yeah, then I switched it back here to reset for blur. But what did I overlook that now it's acting all wonky? Nothing as far as I can tell. I'm trying to think. Let's try to debug this one then. So this is working. That's working. Right click here, download. That doesn't work. Delete. That doesn't work. Most of the things aren't working right now. What would be the reasoning behind that? I wonder if, because I click, this is the active element. But then, is that considered a blur? Is that the issue? I must have missed something along the way. I'll debug it at a later date, that one. Let's see what else there is. So we did that one. We did the reset blur. We did most of these. This is a sort tweak, but I just said I didn't want to use sort. Yeah, look at all the to-dos and stuff I added too. Ugh, I never want to add those to the code if I can help it. Proper blur focus on drop. Okay, what was improper about it? Hard to tell from this commit. Let's just copy the whole thing and take a peek at it. It's in the file entry index. There we go. Let's take a look at what it says. So instead of looking for selection rect and file manager, so first I start with just button. Okay, close this. So before I was looking for all three things before I went into the condition. But now I say, okay, if the button's there, that's enough to get started. If there's a selection rectangle and the file manager exists, then we act just like before and we do the normal selected, just like it was. Otherwise, if the item's already focused and the current active element and you haven't clicked the button, then refocus on the button. What was this for? Proper blur and focus on drop. Ah, I remember, yes. So the issue was, now I've overwritten it. Let's undo the change here. Undo. Undo. There we go. Save it like it was before. Oh, sorry guys, I wasn't in the code again. So I put it back to how it was before. Now I'll show you the demo of it not working. So you see here, we click, it focuses, blur, focus, blur, focus. You drag here, blur. But if I move it here, now when I click, it blurred. That's not what I expected. Wait a second. Let me do that again. So I move this here, and now when I click, you see? It didn't blur right away. So if I drag on here, just clicking won't blur away. And the issue is, it's only checking to do that blur on a selection again. So if I do a selection, there we go, it unblurred. And the fix was this again. Oh, I lost the change. Let me update it again. I see there was actually another part to this change, so we'll have to do that as well. So yeah, I just added this condition and then this else case where if it was already focused, but the active element is not the button, then we focus. Oh, okay. So what this is doing is when you drop it, is this on drop? Yeah, I think this occurs on drop because the item gets focused. Yeah, when you drop it and when it, oh wait, currently it doesn't. That's the next step, I think. Let's see. So we just did this piece. Yes, here. So when a new file is written, it focuses. And the reason why I like that is now when I drag from in Windows onto the thing, it becomes focused, which is kind of how Windows works. So it's the same now internally. When you drag and you put it in a new folder, that kind of writes it for the first time or creates it. then we focus at that point, which I think is what I've done here. Let's double check. I put it right where the update files was. Go into use folder, update files. It's right here. Was it after? Yeah. So where is this? This is in that new path function. So when we're making a new path, but it's on rename here. I think the drag one was already doing focus. Right. So this is just me being consistent with it, I guess. Yeah, that when you drop it on, why would doing it here work for the other one? I think for this one, I must already be doing some focusing. Let's try it out. I need to copy the hook piece. And I'll put it right wherever. Here, I guess. There we go. And now it'll import that, hopefully correctly. Yep. Okay, let's try it out. So now, oh, let me refresh. So now I put it here, and if I put it back here and I click, there we go. And then if I drag something onto the desktop, yeah, it's focused, and then I click, it blurs away. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's the way I wanted that. Proper blur and focus on drop. Proper blur focus on drop. Yeah. Okay. So now if you drag it or drop it from outside in Windows or from internally, you basically get the same visual of it selecting, and it feels kind of similar, hopefully, is what I'm hoping on. To the point where maybe someone will think, oh, I can drag from Dustin's site out. It's like, no, that's not really possible. Maybe one day it will be. But that's a browser limitation more so. This is where I kind of changed how blur works a little bit. I didn't, yeah, blur entry. Basically, blur entry before you always needed to pass a thing, the entry you want to blur. But I've decided that if you pass nothing, it's going to do what was happening here. Because I was doing this 3 times, I think, already. Or twice, yeah, 3 times. Where I'm looping through them. I'm just going to do that instead. I think that's cleaner. And in this case, I no longer even need focused entries. In these 2 cases, I think focused entries is used for something else. There we go. Same exact idea. So we simplified those ones, the calls, and then we just move the logic into the... Where is this going? Ah, okay, interesting. So let's go to use focusable entries here. This command here can now be moved out. Now that it no longer relies on the focused entries, I'm going to put it out here. That doesn't need to be rendered here, but the rest of these do, because file is something that gets passed in. But on blur capture doesn't need to know about file. And I need to specify blur entry as optional here in the type for it. Say it can be optional. And then the blur entry function itself, which is in the file, where is it? Session context here. Here's blur entry. So let's see how blur entry changed. So here it's just, now we pass empty blur entry. We moved the capture one out because it's more simple. And then as far as blur entry, wait, what happened here? I missed a bracket somewhere. There we go. If an entry is passed in, do what it was doing before. Otherwise, just set it as an empty array and clear everything all at once. It's more efficient too. It's actually a lot better than it was doing before. Before I didn't have a way to just say, you know what, just clear the array. But I was doing the exact same thing. So it was, wait, is it? What is, yeah, because blurring the entry, all it does is just clear it from that array. So the array could just be empty and you get the same effect. All right, let's commit that. Empty blur entry to blur all. Right. Empty blur entry call to blur all. Which also rhymes, so that's nice. Okay. Looking at the changes, I'm starting to think, because we skipped sort, I think we've actually done all of them except for that rename one. And the fact that I can't do the rename one because it's busted for some silly reason. Let's try to figure out why. Didn't one button work? I think one of the buttons worked. Delete worked, didn't it? Or set wallpaper? Well, the issue is when I click that it's stealing focus. I suppose we could try to dig into this just for a moment. So the entries are components, system, file, no, menu item entry. Here we go. Here must be something that's going on, I guess. I don't know what I must have missed something here, I guess. Let's just do a console log at the point of focus. Is that a place I can is there somewhere it focuses? On click for the button. Okay, could that be here? Let's try that. Jump back to the code, refresh the console. So I right click. So that click's not making it through. It should be making it here. If that's not clicking, then something's... I wonder if I switch this to an on-click capture. I don't know if I did that, but let's try it. Let me refresh because it might already have the hook. Darn it, that don't make a difference. Could be something like that, like a capture versus a not capture. What we can do here, I'm going to push these 23 commits that I do have, and I'd like to try to do a comparison of the two branches, actually. Let's try that. Redo versus this now. I don't know how well this is going to work. Poorly, I think, is the answer to that. Yeah, it didn't work well. Base redo. No, not base. What base redo? Origin redo. I want to base it on the origin. It's not possible to do, I guess. Yeah, I was hoping to have a smoother comparison of the branches. There's got to be a better way to do this. What if we do it in VS Code? Is it possible? It used to be when I had Git Lens. Let's not get into a rabbit hole with that. Let's see if we can fix renaming anyways without it working. I think I can press the enter key maybe to make it happen. Let's try that. I hover over rename and press enter. No, that don't work. Darn it. Let's see what the improvements were and see if there's anything I can apply. This happens when I'm typing in rename. But because I can't get into rename mode, it's a lot harder to do stuff. Well, let's just apply these fixes, even if we can't test the darn things. Let's at least look at them, and if they make sense, we'll apply them. And then next episode, I'll figure out my mistake, and it'll turn out to have been something extremely simple, I'm sure. I actually don't want to do that change. Keep that the way it was. And what I want to do is just copy rename file exactly. The function. Here we go. Okay, paste it in. Let's take a peek at what changed. Because there were some improvements, right? So first was trimming. You could have spaces in front and behind. That's not how it works in Windows. So right off the bat, I trim it. I take the name piece and trim it to the new name. And if there's anything left, if it's just spaces, then there won't be anything left, and I want it to do nothing. If there is something left, then okay. Now we make a path with the new name plus what we had before. That didn't change actually at all. No, it didn't change, but it added it to 2 lines because it got a little too big. So I do an existence check first to make sure the user's not overwriting now. So check that the new path exists. And if it doesn't exist, then we continue. If it does exist, then just ignore the rename and say, no, say nothing, basically. And then run the command. So what have I fixed here with those two things? Not allowing spaces in the name, not allowing the name to just be, not allowing spaces in front or behind the name, not allowing the name to be no name or to be just spaces, and not allowing you to rename an existing name. So those are pretty good improvements. And the other improvement that I'm just going to, again, I'm going to have to just explain, and you're going to have to just trust me on it, unfortunately, I guess, is the key up. Let's find key down, because I already had key down. So for key down, when you press enter, what was it happening? Oh, right. Every key down was triggering a click, I think, or at least some of them were. So let's say if I pressed AA, that was counting as 2 clicks, and it was doing the double click action. So what I want is key down. If it equals enter, then you do something. Wait, does that make sense? Yeah, I think it does. No. I think the issue is that key down, I want enter to save, basically. And the reason for this change, for adding key up, is I don't want double clicks to be triggered when I'm typing, because pressing space was counting as a click. So when I was doing like hello, like let's say I wanted to do my name is Dustin or whatever, space, you know, if I type it really long and I press space twice in a certain amount of time, that was triggering a double click event. So now when I rename, I can use multiple spaces without it triggering a double click event. Those were the improvements to renaming. I can't show you them because I can't do renaming right now, unfortunately. But we're at 2 hours and 17 minutes. Let's try to debug this for a few minutes. I got to give this an honest effort because this just was not broken in my other system. Let's try to trace it down. So when we do a click, something's stealing focus. Let's go back to that add event listener stuff that we did earlier. Lister. Specifically for this one, I think. Yeah, when the menu becomes unfocused. So let's double check here. Did the menu become unfocused? I mean, it must have been. So it reset the menu. But I don't want that to happen if it's in itself. I feel like I must have missed adding that condition. Let's try to look at the code on the other branch again. So we've done everything on this branch now, but I want to look at the branch, episode 23 or episode 32? Yeah, episode 32. Confused now. I got to delete some of these old branches. And the file was the index, the menu index. So that's component, not apps. System menu index. And I got that active element here. Could it be this? But I added that. No, I got all the pieces of the puzzle there. It just can't, it just doesn't seem like it's coming from that piece. Yeah, I'm not in the mood to debug this right now. I feel like I've already fixed this before and I just got to find my fix, but I don't want to, I can't find the fix right now, unfortunately. I forgot to add the improvements to rename to my list here. We committed it. I'll push that one as another final one. I'm going to look at the change log one more time. And just review that we've got everything here. Just specify the one. Yeah, I think we did it all. Now we have the drag and drop. We got the multi-select working. We can drag things like that. We got the icons working properly. We got the sidebar piece now. I think we did a lot this episode, actually, even though we're ending on a note of the context menu not quite working. It's minor, honestly. It's something I'll fix in 10 minutes when I can think about it, but on the spot in the stream, I'm not that kind of coder. I have no idea what the problem is at the moment. I need to think quietly on it, honestly. I can't be speaking to you guys saying this or that. I'll just start going all the time because I need the gears to move a little bit in my mind, you know, and that's a little harder. So for next stream, we're gonna fix it not being able to click. We might do that JS-DOS file explorer thing and get that working properly. And we might switch to framer motion, but I mean, we use framer motion already, but for the sidebar nav, I don't know if we will because it's got a few moving pieces where it's like the bar and the button have their own animations and they're interconnected. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to delete that one. And then status bar, I'll add that to my notes for a list. Other than that, we're done. We're ending on a short one today because I don't feel the sorting part is done enough for me to show you, so I don't want to disappoint with it. But we're at 2 hours 20 minutes. I think we got a good chunk of time in today, and I appreciate the people that tuned in and the ones that tune in after the fact. If you like this video, please throw me a like. If you want to motivate me, support me, keep up on what's going on, subscribe. I got more of this stuff to come. I do other little videos. I did a GitHub video recently where I showed GitHub Copilot. If you guys want to check that one out. That's it. I don't want to throw any more ums your way, so I think we'll just end it on a high note or possibly a low note. I don't know, but goodbye. See you at the next one.